Okay, so we failed a world level up fate for Ragnarok server on Chaos Data Center, and I know a lot of you are immediately going to say, Chaos is dead, Meoni, Chaos is dead, come to light. Well, there are many reasons why I wouldn't go to light, and one of them is FC House, Friends, and Personal House. I think a lot of people are probably on the same sort of front with that. If it wasn't for the fact that we have things tying us to this server, we would, probably move on. But is that really the answer to this problem? I don't think it is. So why exactly did this fail? There was effectively upwards of 300 people at midnight. Yes, that is a factor as well on my own server taking participation in this particular fate event. Now, we got upwards of 94 contribution a person. A lot of people were saying the same in Shout Chat. Of course, not everybody was bothering to click, a thing and then click another thing and then click another thing for the entirety of 48 minutes. But at the same time, you would have thought that it would have scaled. And I think that's kind of the highlight of the bigger problem. If we go over to somewhere like an Oceanic data center, let's, for example, take this server as an example, and we will show what that looks like. As you can see, whilst everybody else on the rankings is kind of upwards of like the 5s and 6s, on the stages, a lot of people on a lot of the lesser populated servers are really, really struggling. And the only reason they're struggling isn't because of the speed of which they can do stuff, which obviously would be different because your bars would feel different. It's because the fates are failing. So even though you're putting in so much effort into actually grinding that bar up, you've got those 8 segments, you fill those 8 segments of EXP from crafting and gathering as a server, and then you get the fate notification in 30 minutes. You too get to participate in a fate for the leveling up. Now, fates kind of are like the icing on the cake. In my opinion, it should be like, hey, look, let's celebrate what we've done. Here's some EXP points. Let's get this phase done because you've worked hard to fill the EXP bar. The very fact that it can fail alone is a little bit unfortunate. The second factor is it doesn't appear to scale, or if it does scale, it scales rather strangely. And for lower population servers, or, weird times of the night where on a medium population server such as Ragnarok is going to suffer, we're not going to get these things done. So this ended with a failure. We ended up with getting just over 9 million EXP. If you are at level 90, for example, my level 90 Fisher got 9 million XP, so not even a full level from the failure. We get some Cosmo credits, and then we get told that we're going to be waiting another 8 hours. 8 hours go by, and most people are still in bed. It's 7 in the morning, and only 50% of the gauge gets filled on Ragnarok. So, yeah, there are obviously some issues with the time gating. Maybe there needs to be time gating on this, honestly. It's like, hey, the next rank up should happen at a specific time. I don't know. There are many things that could be done as a solution to this, but I have to say, since there are supposedly quite a significant number of upgrades to the actual moon itself, presumably double of what we've got, right? I'm guessing, since there's a lot of places we haven't gone on the moon so far in this content, I would imagine it's only going to get worse. So Square Enix has the opportunity to step in at some point and maybe hotfix some of the scaling values, because otherwise certain servers are just not going to make it, right? Not without a real concerted effort at a weekend on some of these servers at peak times when people are all around. And then there's the RNG of the fate actually triggering at that time when people are around. So that's like one of the big issues. The other thing is you also get locked out of red alerts and mech ops during this period. So if you fail a fate, basically that bar is filled at the top right. You've got the fate incoming message. That does not disappear, which means there is no room for mech ops to pop in that same part of the screen or red alerts. They just physically are turned off for that next 8 hours. And if you fail the next one, that's another 8 hours without it. And if you fail the next one, that's another 8 hours without it. So you do get actively punished as a server if you do mess one of these things up. And I don't think enough people are talking about this. I genuinely think this is one of the bigger issues with cosmic exploration. It's definitely one of the cons. The pros for this content, I mean, there are quite a few. Infinite sprint, amazing. Separate inventory for crafting and gathering, amazing. The buttons on the bar for ethereal reduction, pretty good, even though they're probably, could be better if they were more visible on the screen. Maybe they could put an action button in the middle of the screen. Some people apparently are finding it difficult to click on the Stellar Missions button and find the ethereal reduction button, or, just go into their own ethereal reduction menu and find it. But there are obviously some downsides to this that can definitely be put through a pass. They can be changed, they can be improved on, that aren't detrimental to the experience. There are obviously some criticisms of the fate system, and obviously some people feel like it's incredibly repetitive, picking up a battery, recharging a robot, taking the battery back to the charging thing, bringing it back to the robot. But ideally, you shouldn't need to have 94 contribution for your fate to level up on your server. And I think it should scale to the amount of people doing the content, which it clearly isn't. So this is what the purpose of this video is today. Me to basically just let off a little bit of steam, be very honest with you about my thoughts and opinions on cosmic exploration and how they could do better. And I think scaling is the answer, right? And we can make all sorts of excuses. Oh, it was midnight, most people have got work the next day. There was still over 300 people doing the content. I checked the instances. There was over 300 people in the separate instances. If you need more than 300 people to level up a fate, it should say that, right? There should be a requirement given. They should tell you, oh, this content doesn't scale. Here's the amount of people, how many participants are needed with X amount of turn-ins or something like that. But going into it, realizing you've used half your time allotment of the 50 minutes and you've effectively only done 40%, and then to fail at like 80-90% just simply because we missed that threshold. There either needs to be a time extension, which probably would be the easiest thing to hotfix in, or the ultimate hotfix would be, let's scale it around how many players are here so that we can have that experience. Now, I'm not talking about scaling the entire leveling process, because of course, the more people there are on a server, the further that gets pushed along, right? The sooner, the more frequent the upgrades happen and those fates can occur. But the fates themselves should scale like any other fate in the game. And that's my point about this. But cosmic exploration, to me at least, has been a very positive experience. I'm working through my crafters and gatherers. I recently finished my Weaver relic. I've done my miner relic. I'm a little bit behind other people because I have other things to do. Can't be there 24/7 as much as I used to be able to in Ishgard Restoration. So there are lots of things that I'm enjoying. The gathering side of things seems a little bit slower and a little bit more laborious than the crafting side. The crafting side is amazing because of how the inventory system works, where it's not affecting your inventory. I quite like that, honestly. The gathering side of things, even with that separate inventory, there is still a lot of running around. There are obviously some particular nodes for crafting and gathering that are sort of centered around gear that we don't have yet. And yes, you can manage to squeeze some of those A rank missions out by, min-maxing things. But a lot of the time you look at something and go, wow, this is just incredibly hard. And I think that's because they're focusing on maybe adding some new armor in the future. That's fine. I can understand that. But I don't expect to be able to go for every achievement out of the door. I don't expect to be able to unlock gold rating on every single mission. It's just not something I imagine that I'll be able to do. But what I do imagine from this content is to have a fair playing field when it comes to the fates, depending on how many people still play on my server. And I don't think we're getting that. And it seems to be evident across the rankings, not just that, how far ahead Cactuar is on NA from Ragnarok on EU, but the fact that it's not taking into consideration they've been at the same bar for the past few days because certain servers are just failing repeatedly. Yeah, it's one of those things, isn't it? And I think to provide feedback and to talk about it is important. Let me know your experiences. Have you managed to go through this flawlessly? Do you find this entertaining? What do you think about the Fate design? I'm curious about your feedback on the content as a whole, your experience as a whole, and we may use that information, that data from your comments for a subsequent video, and we might make this into a discussion. And we'll see if we can go and find someone to discuss this with. But it's a great piece of content. I think on paper, this could be something that I get very addicted to in the later stages, especially when we go to new planets, new stars, or whatever term you want to use. But there are some glaring issues that do poke out of the side of this otherwise quite smooth experience and make it a little bit jagged on the edges. But yeah, quite enjoying it. You know, plodding along, just the Fates. Rather disappointing to see them fail, and my heart goes out to anybody who plays on Oceanic. Quite honestly, you have all of the cards stacked against you, and I have no idea what the solution is, but it would be nice if it scaled the Fate at least around the people that were there, like every other Fate in the game, and that's all I'll say. Thank you so much for watching. More videos on the way, slight rant out of the way, but more feedback and criticism than anything, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.